Yeah.
This is what I wish somebody would have told me when I was younger. Because, by the way, Tony, I didn't tell you this. When I was 15, I learned about this stuff and I actually went to a hospital and x-rayed my bones. Absolutely true. I've made videos on this. Obese younger people have much lower growth hormone levels, but they have much higher IGF-1 levels. I found this out through extreme research. What causes the actual penile tissue to stop growing? Is it the end of puberty? It's also the freaking estrogen.
How to grow taller with chemistry. I'm Dr. Tony Huge here with Leo Longevity, and we had a great response to Leo's post on his page asking for questions. Someone said, what do you think about using MK677 and letrozole to grow taller? And I said, of course, MK677, because it causes your body to produce very large amounts of growth hormone, and growth hormone helps you grow taller. Deficiency in growth hormone very clearly makes people very short. And the Philippines, this is a huge problem. They have a deficiency in growth hormone and IGF, causing them to be very, very short. And they're actually fixing this by giving kids growth hormone and IGF at young ages. And then he mentions letrozole also. Like, what does letrozole, which crashes estrogen, have anything to do with growing taller?
So in an earlier video, we were talking about how some cells, as we get older, stop being able to divide. This is called senescence of cells. Senescence of cells in the body, including in the bones, is driven mainly by estrogen. The reason why women are shorter than men is because of this. In fact, I was so interested in studying this that I went through a lot of papers on the subject, but also looked at the estrogen levels, estradiol levels in children as they get older, and what exactly level the doctors keep them at to stop them from their height stopping. The level is actually very shockingly low. It's like below 10 on the US metrics of estradiol is what is needed to keep growing. So as we get older, so if you block estrogen very potently, you will continue to grow. In fact, it's interesting. Without taking the growth hormone, you'll just continue to grow slowly into 25, past that age, until you let your estrogen peak. And once it peaks, by the way, if it has peaked already, this may not work. It depends how long it's been peaked. Senescence will go throughout the body. About MK677, I wanted to comment. MK677 is very uniquely useful also because what they usually do to people that want to grow taller in early age is they give them large amounts of growth hormone, like 40 units for a 100 kg person every other day, something like that.
Much higher than growth hormone usage in bodybuilders.
Very high amounts, and they crash estrogen and they wait. But when you take that exogenous growth hormone, your own growth hormone stops producing. Your body recognizes it, just like testosterone. It comes back really quickly, by the way. I've researched this a lot. It comes back within a couple of days, but it stops. Why does that matter? You're injecting one kind of growth hormone. You produce 5. So in your brain, you produce 5. So you've now just lost some element. All the growth hormones must act somewhat differently. You've just lost some element of your natural growth. So I think really doctors should be putting the children also on MK677 whenever they use growth hormone.
But
so
they won't because the pharmaceutical companies don't make money. Yes. So they're prescribing expensive growth hormone, which there's no reason it should be that expensive other than the monopoly there.
Now, for the gentleman who asked this question, he was talking about using letrozole with MK677 without growth hormone, probably because of financial reasons.
And kids these days are subjected to so many environmental chemicals that their estrogen is artificially inflated.
Exactly.
They're exposed to chemical estrogens from the environment. And their growth hormone is suppressed because they're eating constantly junk foods. And so their body isn't ever going through this fasting state where it's producing enough growth hormone as it would naturally hundreds of years ago.
Absolutely true. I've made videos on this. Obese younger people have much lower growth hormone levels, but they have much higher IGF-1 levels. So it seems to equalize sort of on their height, although I would much prefer to have higher growth hormone levels because various reasons. But if you're a young man growing up and you're fat, you're going to have, for example, a smaller penis. You're going to have a lot of other effects that you don't want long term. But you also have higher estrogen levels. So I think in the end, they should be slightly shorter, but the IGF-1 seems to...
So what would you want for your children? Because we sat on an airplane the other day with, it's an Asian airplane, and our knees are hitting the seat in front of us, and the seats don't recline. It's a little bit too small for us, and we're not even that big. Like being bigger can have some of its disadvantages. So for your children, let's say you have a girl, let's say you have a boy, do you want them actually as tall as possible?
I think I've thought about this a lot. The only reason I think about this is that I never had an issue with my own height, really. But if I could go back and be massive, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? The reason why, maybe, you may die slightly younger. However, there are the biggest meta-analyses on growth hormone treatment for younger people shows that 20, 30 years later, they don't seem to have higher incidence of cancer or higher incidence of heart disease. But technically, that shouldn't be true. being larger, you're more likely to get cancer and heart disease. So that's the main issue. I wouldn't do it if I had a girl also, because sometimes girls are disadvantaged if they're taller, especially in the dating arena. They might feel they don't want to date a shorter guy, but there's not that many shorter.
Yeah, girls always want to date a taller guy, but if the girl's really tall, I've met some beautiful tall girls that have such a hard time finding a good guy to be with because they want to be with a guy taller, and now you've just eliminated a lot of the guys if you made yourself too tall.
Exactly. On the other hand, if you're a man, as you know, through all fighting sports, there are weight classes. The reason why is that the higher weight class people can beat the crap out of the smaller people. So there is, and it's true. I mean, they can't. The smaller. I mean, sometimes these lightweight guys get into fights on the street and get knocked out by just a bigger guy who doesn't know how to fight that well. So it's for protection, for safety and stuff like that. It is better to be tall. But what I want to comment on is this. So the gentleman, he didn't mention taking growth hormone, even though the doctors give high amounts of growth hormone to people. I think that the reason is he can't afford it, maybe. Would it be worth it if I, for example, was much younger now and I didn't reach senescence yet? Would I take letrozole just with MK677 and hope for the best? I would. MK677 increases growth hormone by on average about 75%. So 1.75 times the amount of growth hormone you have, 50% times the IGF you have. So you have significantly more growth, but the difference is now your growth doesn't have an end date. So you're just going to grow slower for longer. I would rather, of course, take growth hormone at the same time, even if I had to take Chinese growth hormone.
So what protocol would I use if I was within the age range that this was going to be effective to use growth hormone and letrozole? So with the growth hormone, I would use MK677. I wouldn't use growth hormone. I think it's healthier to use. It's cheaper. It's more accessible, and I'm not helping support the pharmaceutical companies. And I would take it before bed, and I'd just take 10 milligram, and I'd take it like 3 days per week, 10 milligram before bed. But with letrozole, if you take too much letrozole, you crash estrogen too much, and then you have all kinds of problems. Right? So like with a letrozole, there's a 1 milligram tablet, and that's enough if you took that every day to crash estrogen too low. I mean, in that case, we'd take some small fraction of a pill, and we'd take it only twice per week.
We would think so, but this is the issue. If it really was crashing estrogen and that's causing a lot of problems, it's specifically in the growth studies for idiopathic short stature, which means younger people who are shorter than their parents for no apparent reason. They give these people growth hormone also. For these people, letrozole outperforms all other AIs. Why? Because it's stronger. So, to be honest with you, if there may be issues with having too little estrogen, but keep in mind, they have too little estrogen already. It's only when the estrogen peaks that they have the issue. They originally have estrogen at the age of 10 is like 2, 4.
Yeah.
So it's really crashed already. Personally, I wouldn't even worry about it. I would want my estrogen nil, so I can really.
And this is for men, right? Women are still going to need more estrogen. They're going to have all kinds of hormonal problems.
Yeah.
Plus, women don't want to grow as tall. They can just use MK677. Maybe they shouldn't touch estrogen.
Let me tell. Well, I don't even think women should do it at all. I mean, unless they're competitive, they want to be competitive athletes,
or unless they're like really short. And they
yeah.
need. Medically, the doctor was going to put them on growth hormone anyways. Better to use MK6.
Let me tell you something that's interesting that we haven't talked about. I found this out through extreme research. What causes the actual penile tissue to stop growing? Is it the end of puberty? It's also the freaking estrogen. Wow. So you cross out that estrogen, and your testosterone to estrogen ratio goes up, and you grow everywhere better.
So this is why fat kids would end up being shorter usually, because their estrogen is going to be too high, because they're overeating, they're not getting enough natural growth hormone pulsage. And then when we're lean, our body converts normally. I mean, you could still be subjected to environmental estrogens, but normally when your body's lean, you convert less testosterone to estrogen. So if we were going to take the natural approach to increasing height, we'd be skinny, we'd have low body fat.
High protein. That's another
exercise. Eat high protein. Good.
One of the reasons that
and we'd avoid environmental estrogen toxins.
And we would avoid extreme stress or sickness. So if you get sick, your growth hormone just shuts down. And if you get very stressed out, the same thing happens. Like if you're in a family, an abusive family, something like that, you'll stop growing earlier, usually on average. Yeah, but what you really want, most of all, is high protein. Protein is the main reason that Europeans got taller in the last 200 years. And it's the main reason that Indians are short. India still suffers from malnutrition, and the protein affects them. But I believe that the Philippines also has a low protein content in their diet also. I think this is one of the reasons that they're a bit shorter on average. Okay. This is what I wish somebody would have told me when I was younger, because, by the way, Tony, I didn't tell you this. When I was 15, I learned about this stuff. and I actually went to a hospital and x-rayed my bones because I wanted to take growth hormone to grow taller. They told me your bones are closed. Bones don't close in. It's not a dichotomous yes or no. They were closing. I didn't know that. I could have taken the growth hormone, taken the AI, and grown taller. But the doctor said, "Oh, your elbow looks like it's closed." So it doesn't all close at once. So if I was 15, 16, I would still do this.
Taking growth hormone younger makes us taller. Taking growth hormone as we get older makes us wider.
Exactly, that's true.
Be swole, swole, friends of freedom, pioneers of human evolution. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below what you want to talk with us about. With us.